boy, we got some things to talk about today with regards to Basketball Wives. I know y'all saw that episode and we got a lot to talk about today, okay? But before we do that, y'all, it's your boy DJ Richie Skye back in his house, back in the building. And I want to know who my people are that are in the building as well. So make sure you guys drop that location down in that good chatterization. You know, I see y'all. I hear y'all. I want to know where you watching from. Y'all know I like to know y'all location. Give me that location. Y'all know I'm up in DC, so I want to know where y'all watching from. Listen. Lots to talk about with regards to Basketball Wives. Lots to talk about today. I want to see who my people are in the house first. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Chicago, Tennessee, Paris, France, Colorado, Hawaii, Jiggy City, Baton Rouge, Chicago in the house, New York, come on, California, Florida. Who else we got up in this piece? We got ATL in the place, Indiana, South Africa. Come on now. Come on, South Africa, MD, DC. We got all of our people from all over the world in the house with us today. And y'all know I always just like to say thank you for stopping by today. Thank you for being here. You guys could be anywhere in the world, obviously, but you chose to be here right now for this discussion. And for that, I appreciate you. Trust and believe. Now, you know, we got to talk about Basketball Wives from last night. But before we get into that, we also got to talk about the news with regards to the episode. And as you guys can see by the title, OG is revealing, okay? She's exposing some things. She's exposing some, a takedown plot, okay? Now, it's interesting. You know, there's part of the takedown plot that involves, you know, Phoebe Torres, who really hasn't even been on the screen that much. But allegedly, according to OG, it seems like Nia and Naria were brought on in an attempt to take down Phoebe Torres. Now, here's the other part of this, though. OG has leaked some more audio from her conversation with Malaysia and Kristen, and it paints a very different picture from what we actually saw on the screen. Granted, what we saw on the screen actually happened, but there was a lot more context to that conversation that makes me understand now why OG reacted in the way that she reacted, the way they placed it in the episode. We'll discuss it as we go along. So let's go ahead and get into the first thing that OG released via Instagram. And these were text messages regarding, I guess they were really regarding, you know, how Nia was going to be introduced on this show. We discovered last night that apparently they had already had some discussions. There had been some discussion between OG and Nia, excuse me. But there's some real trickiness to how the drama unfolded, okay? So this is what OG had to say on social media. And if you go to OG's page, you guys can see it here. She's like, this is why I don't F with the Clout Sisters, period. In 2019, I hired a new publicist, Elton Qualls Harris. Love him. He introduced me to a blogger / fan of the show who wanted to interview me. I had hesitation, but eventually I agreed to do the interview. Long story short, it was all a setup to try to get her, the blogger, and her friend, the jump off ex, on the show. I'm assuming that would be Nia. Then she says, for months, they begged my PR to meet me and I declined for good reason. Eventually, I found out they were on the show and used my name to gain their spot. I met them in person for the first time at the mansion and let them know lying on me was not cool, but that I would still help them get acclimated. Needless to say, these heifers tried to set me up and had help with production. There is a lot that happens that you all never get to see, but that is going to change, okay? So in these text messages here, you guys can see are between her and Elton, the PR person. I'm assuming she has permission to release these text messages. She basically says, just a heads up, V, call me. This is Elton, I'm assuming, who was saying that it's some Basketball Wives LA drama regarding, her friend and you. And she's like, what drama? She's still upset. And basically, I'm going to just kind of, to cut all of this down, basically what's happening here is apparently she's going through this conversation with Elton, the PR person, about, allegedly meeting or having Nia being pushed down her throat by someone she interviewed with. Now, here is what's interesting. I actually know one of the interviewers. I'm not sure if that's who she was talking about because the interview was with AfterBuzz TV. Now, you guys may recall, if you guys have followed my history, and some of you may not, and that's absolutely fine. Some of you may know that I actually used to work at AfterBuzz TV, and it's a great space for, recapping television shows. And a lot of people knew me from doing my Married to Medicine recaps, along with my Real Housewives of Dallas recaps, along with my recaps for Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And I'm trying to remember if I used to work on a movie show there as well. So interesting crossover right there. Now, here's the thing. There is some speculation that basically for OG's part, she is saying that this girl, Nia, was basically forced on her by the person who was interviewing her via a cell phone call. And OG is like, she really didn't want to have anything to do with this whole storyline. Now, when we got to the show, Nia made it seem like OG approached her, okay, to bring her on to try to confront Phoebe, which really doesn't make as much sense given the context of how things have gone down. Also, Nia has promised to release some receipts. However, we have yet to see those receipts. So I look for those receipts. I have not found those receipts. I haven't seen anything of the sort as of yet. But if she does post them, then I will definitely, I'm definitely here to clear any of that up. The other portion of this is that, in these text messages, you have OG contacting someone from VH1 and basically going off on VH1 for what she believes is someone at the network giving Nia her phone number. And she's basically going off about how she feels like she's being sabotaged, by production. And she talks about the pending lawsuit. And I'm not necessarily sure if she means the pending lawsuit that Evelyn has on her, or if she herself is raising a lawsuit in regards to the way she's been treated on this show. Okay. So a lot of people didn't get the text messages. And, we just got to wait and see what really comes out, because for OG's part, she doesn't have any text communications between her and Nia. What she does have, though, is a phone call, basically, I guess, from what is supposed to be Nia's number, indicating that Nia did call her. And again, we have not seen Nia post any screenshots of any text messages between she and OG that would prove what she's saying to be true. Okay. Now, I do believe to a certain degree that this could be a little bit of production manipulation, being that, production probably knew the situation between Nia and Phoebe, and they were maybe looking for a way to introduce Nia to the show. And it probably would have seemed like OG would have been the most appropriate person to introduce her. But if OG shut that idea down, if she shut it down, then it seemed like they decided to go with the next best option, which would be Jackie. Boom. That's how I believe this whole situation happened. Now, I want to move on because OG also released, she also released some audio from yesterday's episode. Now, again, I'm not going to play that audio here simply because I don't know who that audio actually belongs to. The audio could indeed belong to, VH1. It could belong to OG herself. But because the audio was part of a production that was on television, I'm not going to play it here. However, I did listen to all 60 minutes of the audio because it is an hour in length. I had a lot of you guys who were tagging me on a lot of these posts from last night. So I do want to say thank you. I do want to say thank you for tagging me, keeping me up to date, even while I was sleeping. You know what I'm saying? Some of y'all was up doing your super sleuth, and I appreciate you all for that. Okay. Now, what I want to say to you guys is this. Last night when I watched the episode, I was a little annoyed with OG, in watching how the episode played out. It almost felt like she was just sort of unwilling to move on and to separate herself from her point. Okay. But the audio reveals a quite a different story. Okay. It reveals quite a different story. And it makes you wonder why production edited it the way that they edited it, because the conversation, the way that it actually ended, the first time it ended, was not bad. It was almost as if they chipped away a little bit at what was really supposed to be a conversation that needed to be had. But then when they brought Malaysia and Kristen back in to find out what it was indeed that OG actually wanted, and she told them, and in the way that she told them, it was so non-threatening. It was just so like, you know what? You could tell in that conversation, OG wanted to start with a clean slate. You could tell in that situation. Now, I understand the moment the color issue was brought up and the race issue was brought up, I believe that everybody their alarms went off and they were up in arms. I get it. But at the same time, it seemed as though what nobody was doing was really listening to the woman and hearing her when she's saying, it seems to me like she's just saying, I want to be treated fairly. I want to be treated fairly. And it seems to me that there were some preconceived notions before she even came on the scene of who she was based on what she looked like. Now, whether that was regarding her skin color, her aesthetic, meaning, hair, nails, outfit choices, or whatever the case may be, there was some marker or indicator by which the ladies used to judge her before she even came on the scene. And that becomes evident throughout this conversation, throughout this audio, because OG does bring up points where she's heard that these were the things that were being said about her before she even stepped on the screen. And some of these things are reality TV tropes, meaning things that they talk about on a lot of shows. Oh, her hair don't look good. She dressed like this, yada, yada, yada. And some of those things were also things that were maybe mixed in with other aspects of her visual aesthetic, like how she looked physically. And so then when you start to breaking down those things, that's when you start to get into a little bit of the color issues. And we have to remember, guys, when we're talking about, color issues in general, okay, we also have to realize that racism is a lot more easy to notice and for us to see it and to categorize it. But the colorism issue is a little bit more complex and a little bit more layered. So there are a lot of layers to the color issue that we have to also look at, and that people are just not always cognizant about. Okay. So having said that, I want to read you guys what she actually had to say. Famed, segregated, and called a monkey, I shared my experience. I was asked multiple times while filming to explain myself regarding these topics and did so in great detail, just to have it edited out. This is not my storyline. I'm not the one who keeps bringing it up. I have no reason to lie. Narrative and tell the truth. To everyone that is still riding with me, thank you so much. Now, if you guys scroll down, You guys will see that Royce Reed has commented and she's added her 2 cents into it. And this is what she had to say. She said, with truth and honesty, that's what we need to hold on to the good stuff we believe in. Before we land up loose and sad and free, before we find that it's gone, we could pull it back together. Truth and honesty. Open up your hand, show me your heart. And these are Aretha Franklin lyrics. She says, whew, it can be so frustrating knowing the true colors of people when they are loved by so many simply because they put on a good show. For those questioning the purpose of these unedited audio recordings, imagine trusting and putting yourself on camera in front of hundreds of thousands and sometimes millions of people, hoping your true self as your real friends, family, know you who is shown. Believing the producers who are so good at manipulating your thoughts of being on your side and then realizing playing with your emotions is their job. It's a black mirror. It's like waking up naked with chains on and your clothes are inches away while a bunch of strangers laugh and judge you. You're helpless. A contract binds you. At some point, you find the strength to break free, dress yourself, and want to fight all involved. Literally, I stand with you, OG. They are mad at being exposed, but refuse to take accountability for their actions. That is very telling. Whether you believe it to be racism, colorism, favoritism, it is wrong. And I'm going to read that to you guys again. She says, whether you believe it to be racism, colorism, or favoritism, it is wrong, period. Okay? So when a person's dark side gets exposed, it shouldn't be scary. But when it's hidden and covered up for so long, it is. Why? Because undiscovered lies have the ability to diminish a person more than the ones revealed. Notice what's being admitted versus what's being omitted. I just got to say, y'all, I mean, this is some powerful stuff right here. Shout out to you for the super chat. Sincere, I think it's Unino. Do you feel they will ever bring back OGs? Oh, bring her back to Basketball Wives? I don't know. And we'll get into the future of Basketball Wives in just a bit. But I do want to say thank you for the super chat. I had another super chat up here as well that I wanted to acknowledge. Give me just 1 second because I want to find it, you guys. So bear with me. I appreciate your patience, y'all. Marcella says, OG is not narcissistic. She fights and wins with their game. There was another one. I'm so sorry, y'all. I want to just acknowledge all of the people who, took the time out to donate as well before we move on. I couldn't see the last super chat, so whoever it was, thank you so much. I appreciate you. All right. Now, with that being said, I want to pick back up where we left off with the episode because we've talked a lot about the news. And I could definitely go into a lot of, I could rehash the whole conversation between Malaysia, Jackie, and Kristen and OG. But one of the things that I found that I felt like we needed to talk about was, OG said that she was called Godzilla, aggressive, and called a gorilla. Okay. Thank you so much for the super chat, Lathon, who says, DJ Richie Skye, I love you. You can get it if you change your mind. I'm sick of these housewives and households. We need new storylines and new castmates. All the shows lack interest. Thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate you, love. And we talked about this idea of calling another Black woman aggressive. And I think that, understanding the implications of what that means now, I think that there has to be some way of finding another way to communicate what our feelings are about an action that's taken that may be over the top. And maybe that's what we'll call it from this point forward. What she said or did was over the top. You know what I'm saying? She was doing a little too much. I think we can sort of describe it that way without calling it aggressive, because I do kind of understand now, the more that I've worked in this business in this way, especially with you guys, how the word aggressive can come across and how much harm can be done by labeling a Black woman or a Black man as overly aggressive, because I feel like the punishment for an aggressive behavior, if taken by a Black person, is typically worse. And so understanding the ramifications of it makes a big difference in how we now use that word moving forward. So I get that. Although, and I will say at times, OG can have some over the top reactions. So we'll just call it that. But a lot of them have over the top reactions. So we'll talk about OG's over the top reaction. And she only had one tonight. But I just want to be fair in how I'm characterizing people's behavior when it comes to the reality of this show. Okay. Now, these were great examples of, OG being labeled as an animal, which sort of falls under this whole idea of you're labeling her as a dark-skinned woman as being these types of things, right? And that's not cool. That's not what we're trying to do. And she points that out. Malaysia also points out how, OG can easily bite back at people. You know what I'm saying? So they had their conversation about the wig conversation. And, the more OG kind of talked to them, and it was later on in that conversation that I had a realization about a lot of us. And OG basically says, and you hear it in the audio when Malaysia asked her, "What do you want?" And OG said, I just want everybody to be themselves. And what's funny about that is, I don't know if you guys watch Real Housewives of Dallas. Thank you so much for the super chat. Ilyana Levanzan should help them. Definitely. Hello from Paris. I don't know if you guys watch Real Housewives of Dallas, but there's a situation on there where Brandy Redmond was making fun of Asians in her in a video. She got caught doing it. And now there's an Asian, housewife. And so she doesn't know how to be herself now because she's afraid of what she may say or do. Well, it shouldn't be that hard for you to be yourself if you're indeed not acting or doing anything that may be racist. So everybody should just be able to be themselves. And I almost feel like that's just what they should have done. They shouldn't, versus regurgitating this same dialogue and trying to get her to say something. And I feel as though what was maybe supposed to be the agenda was, for some reason, it felt like Jackie was trying to get OG to say that she did not, in fact, experience any colorism. And that was something that I didn't like. I understand that Jackie wants the show to continue. Jackie wants to stay on this ride, and I appreciate that because I love me some Jackie. But I ain't like that because that felt like gaslighting to me. And I know I'm jumping ahead of myself, but it kind of goes to what OG was saying. I just want you guys to be yourselves and, it's pretty much just enjoy this ride. For her, she's already dealt with this idea that she's experienced colorism within the group. And what is so interesting is that she never placed a name on it. She basically said she's experienced it. And then she basically said, we've all done it. So that led me to this. Thank you, Meredith, who says a lot of people are switching sides blogs too. At this point, we need Emmanuel Ocho and Amanda Seals to uncover this and heal the circle. This is a real issue. Absolutely right. This is a real issue. It is a huge issue. And it is a bigger issue than a conversation on this reality show can really manage. And I felt like maybe that was why OG was saying, I need to try a different approach with these ladies because what I'm doing right now isn't working. And the reason it's not working is because for them, it seemed like she was creating a moving goalpost. Okay. Like they get one thing and then they're like, oh, but now you're saying colorism is if a parent calls their child, this, and they don't understand it. Oh, now we're all colorists. No, I believe that OG is speaking in a general sense of what colorism is and what it means for the Black community. And I don't think that they got that. So I think that was lost in interpretation when she said we're all guilty of it. I feel like they lost that and they took offense to it as though it was I personally, she's calling me out personally, when I personally did not receive it that way. Once I listened to this audio, I had a completely different opinion about it than I did the night before. And I said, oh, this is a much deeper conversation that needs to be had. And it's not really going to get resolved right here on this television show. But it also calls into question how the women talk to each other in general. There is going to be a point where at some points for OG, I was with her because I get it. But in some points, certain things are reality show tropes that are never going to change. Sometimes I feel like, and I wish it would change because, you know, it's probably not healthy for us as Black people or as people who are watching these shows, but there are always going to be catty comments about the other women, a new woman coming into the franchise, or a new dude coming in, or new family coming in. Somebody's going to have opinions, and they always not going to be pretty. And it's going to be sometimes about how they look, how they dress, what kind of house they got, those little things. It's always going to be that nitpicking kind of thing. But I understand what she was saying, because I think that there is something to how we speak to each other at times that is rooted in colorism, and we don't even know it, right? So I think we can acknowledge that. And again, if you listen to the audio, I feel like you can tell she really wanted to wipe the slate clean with both Malaysia and Kristen. She said it out of her own mouth. She completely said it. And I felt like they continued to kind of go back and harp on the same issues, getting her to explain to them more examples, what she wanted to have happen, when obviously the girl just wanted to be left alone. Bottom line. So, you know, I think that there were things that were lost in interpretation. I think that the issue of colorism is so layered and so complex that not everybody always understands it, not even myself. Okay. And I think some of the things that OG was talking about may not necessarily fall under the realm of colorism, but really reflects more about how we as Black people speak to and refer to each other. That's not always the nicest. So I think it's a lot of those issues combined, right? Now, moving on from that, you know, Jackie says, let's take a break. And I feel like they needed a break at that moment. Malaysia and Kristen look like they're about to leave, but little do we know that the band ain't letting them leave yet. And so they got to sit back and kind of listen to the argument that's about to ensue in the other room when the ladies proceed to the other room. Now, I'm going to tell you, when you guys listen to that audio, the way Kristen and Jackie and Malaysia ended was much more peaceful than how it was on the television screen. When you could tell they left hugging each other, saying, you know what? I mean, they left on a friendly note. So it was interesting to see how it played on TV versus what the audio showed. It's almost as if the producers wanted to paint a picture of OG that maybe wasn't in the best light. But the reality of the situation was that it didn't happen like that, you know? And I feel like that's what I don't like, because why create a situation where there could have been a small piece of resolve? Because I felt like that's what we had. We had a small piece of resolve until we get to the inside and we get Jackie and Jennifer and Nia and Naria and OG all sitting together. Now, this is where Jackie tells the ladies that OG has said that everybody in the room is a colorist. Okay. Now, again, I've explained to you what I think that OG meant. I think she was speaking in general terms that we all exhibit colorist behavior at times. So we're all to blame. So we all need to take a deeper look at ourselves. That's how I interpreted it based on the audio. However, that ain't what really happened. So we get the girls who are asking, basically, you know, what happened. They are asking questions about the situation. And OG kind of seems a little bit prickly with them. And she seems annoyed with them for asking the questions. Okay. Now, in her confessional, I think Nia says that she doesn't. Oh, in her confessional, OG says that she doesn't owe these two sisters anything because they are new to the group. Okay. Now, I kind of wish she had taken a little bit of a different stance with that, but I think at this point, OG is not really trusting anybody in this situation. Particularly now, I feel like she's not trusting these sisters, because whomever brought these sisters on, I feel like if the goal of this bringing the sisters on was specifically to come at Phoebe and try to take her down in some way, shape, or form, I feel like that ain't cool. If they were brought on for the simple fact that they are, you know, Naria is actually married to a basketball player or a former player, then that's fine. But I think bringing the sister on is where the drama factor, you know, kind of helped her introduction into this whole situation. Nia feels as though it's a double standard because she says that OG can ask her questions, but she feels like she can't ask OG nothing. Now they get into it because then somehow Naria and OG get into it. Hold on for a second. Meredith says the disconnect also is OG needs to address one issue at a time. Some of her issues are just gossip and shade. The colorism and racism are separate. I agree with you with that. I agree. I think that there are a couple of different issues going on here. And I think that if you separate those issues better, if she separated them better, I felt like it would have been a better discussion as well. But, we are where we are with it, But I do feel like, again, they left it in my mind, hearing that audio, they left on positive terms, right? They left on positive terms. Patricia says, you're making too many excuses for OG. No, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to understand the difference and the disconnect between the audio that I heard and what I'm seeing on the screen. So all I'm doing for you guys is I'm providing you with a better context for which you can view the episode for yourself. I'm going to call out what I see that OG does wrong, and I'm going to call out anything that I see that everybody else does wrong. And I hope that you guys can receive that. The next thing I want to say is this. OG says to Naria, they're going back and forth about, how they feel about this whole issue. And OG says, if you don't let me finish, you'll be finished. Now, here is where I feel like OG goes wrong. Okay. Because for me, this falls under the territory of, again, we're not going to call it aggressive at this point. We're going to call it doing too much. Okay. We're going to call it she was team too much in that moment. In no way, shape, or form did that situation require her to go to that length. Even if she was frustrated, and I guarantee, I get that she was, even if she is distrustful in this situation, because at this point in time, given the relationship between her and the sisters and given what's going on in the past between them, I feel like she has a reason to be on edge with them. But I don't feel like in that situation, it was necessary for her to say, if you don't let me finish, you'll be finished. Because my favorite line of the night was, well, finish me then. Okay. I was here for her. I was here for that clapback in that moment, because I was kind of like, if you're going to toss out that type of statement, then you can be met with that type of response. To me, that's just fair. So, I got to say it all that. So then OG says that the sisters came in with an agenda to ask me all these questions. Okay. But at the same time, she has asked them questions too. So I understand why there's a little bit of tension here. So then OG says, Nia, don't pretend that this is the first time we've had this Phoebe conversation. Now, this is where things get juicy, okay? She says, when you were brought to me by your friend, you were on the phone saying, F that B, okay? Nia says, OG was trying to bring her on the reunion to confront Phoebe about, I guess, their past together, okay? OG says Nia was desperate to get into the collective and offered Phoebe as collateral to get her into the collective. They get into what, who looks stupid about who has what on. And this is another one of those situations where they get into it about the clothes that they got on, okay? These are one of those little petty arguments, but, we know how these things turn out. Now, they both get out their cell phones. I don't know if you guys noticed this in the scene, but when they was arguing, they both had their cell phones out. So what I was trying to ascertain was, were they calling the producer? Were they trying to text, or find the text messages that had gone on between them? There has been something that has gone on between these two ladies. And I don't know what exactly was said, but they definitely have talked before. Now, whose idea it was to get who on the show, I don't know. But, okay, we forgot to rate the episode. I'm sorry, y'all. This my bad. It was so much news. Right now, if you in the chatterization, because we didn't do it earlier, y'all know we got to do it. I'm going to need you to rate this episode on a scale of 1 to 10, okay? Give me a scale of 1 to 10, all right? For me, I'm going to give this episode, though I hate the fact that it was the next to last episode, I'm going to give it a 9.5. And I'm going to tell you why I give it a 9.5. To me, We got a lot of good information in this episode, a lot of tension, barely any resolve though. And we got some good like confrontations here. You know what I'm saying? Also, we got a surprise announcement from SHAUNIE that I felt like was very interesting as well. And I'm going to highlight some of you guys' responses right here. I apologize, y'all, for not getting to that earlier. It was so much news regarding this episode, and I had to get into it. I like it. Theo says, it was a cute little episode. I like it. Okay. Wait, Levon says, I give the audio a 9.5. Okay. Rating, gotta go. Y'all so crazy. Y'all crazy. Y'all are crazy. Okay. So, you know, when they get back, the other ladies get back and they report back to SHAUNIE and Evelyn that, you know, that OG apparently called everybody a colorist or whatever. Malaysia reasons that if you're arguing with strangers, then it's got to be you. Evelyn calls Jackie to invite her and the sisters over, and they leave OG and Jen together, and that's got to be awkward. On the ride over, the sisters feel, you know, they established that they're not afraid of OG. I don't really feel like they're afraid of OG either, but, you know, that is what it is. You know, at this point that they gather together, SHAUNIE, Evelyn, Malaysia, and everybody in the Malaysia household, in the Evelyn household, and Jackie and Nia and Naria. And SHAUNIE tells the ladies that she's been concerned and disturbed due to OG publicly making them out to be colorist and racist. And she says that she would talk to OG if she knew that OG would be open. Okay. Now, SHAUNIE feels like she doesn't have a moment to give OG. She feels like OG doesn't want to come to the table and have a conversation. And maybe OG didn't want to have a conversation. Maybe she just simply wanted to enjoy the vacation. Maybe the addressing of the issue, the colorism issue, was more on the side of production than anybody else. But I still stand firm in my statement that had SHAUNIE had a conversation with OG either at the reunion last season or after the reunion when she did her one-on-one sit down with Mark Lamont Hill, that going into this season, it could have been a whole lot different if she had just sat down, had a conversation. And why was she the one that needed to have the conversation? Because she is the head honcho of this group. She is the HBIC in charge of this group of girls. So it, to me, seems like versus having her send over, and maybe she didn't send over Malaysia and Kristen, but to me, I just feel like the boss move in this situation would have been to sit down and have a conversation. Let me tell you like this. Let's say I'm a boss, right? And I got some employees that are working under me. If one of my employees goes to HR, and I don't know if this is the right protocol, but if one of my employees goes out and makes a complaint about feeling isolated and marginalized and felt like there was a color issue, do you think as an employee, as an employer, that I would sit back and allow my employee to feel like that? The first thing I'm doing is calling that employee into my office and we having a direct conversation. What's going on? Like, how can we make this situation better? Boom, bam, done. You know what I'm saying? So I just kind of feel like she has a responsibility to be the leader and to handle the situation directly, because this is the thing. And we've all talked about it. The longer this situation goes unchecked, the more it festers, the bigger it gets. Okay. So she could have put a stop to this whole thing a long time ago, whether it was colorism, favoritism, or whatever the case may be. She could have had that conversation because the accusations were so strong. She shouldn't have run from it. And that's exactly what she's doing right here. She says that she doesn't want to be in this space and her piece is at home with her kids. So she's going to exit the building, stage left. And she's leaving tonight, as in right then and right there. Now, to me, I'm thinking to myself, now I'm mad. Now I'm mad because I feel as though even if you felt that there was nothing that you could do about this situation, the energy was in Jackie's house. It wasn't in your house. And it was only because people kept talking to this girl about the situation. You see, Evelyn ain't really had no issues with the whole situation because she won't ever gonna go over there and talk to old girl anyway. She ain't had no problems. And the reason why Evelyn's leaving is because Shaunie's leaving. Now, I can't say that I blame her for leaving because ultimately, if one of my people that I'm cool with decide that they up and leaving a situation and they done made a way for me to get paid and get a job. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the super chat, Philly Diva. My thing is, I get why she chose to leave behind her. Plus, she the one with the lawsuit against OG, so I'm sure she don't really care anyway. But at the end of the day, I feel like it was a coward-like move on Shaunie's behalf to flee the scene and to do it the night of. And I understand you got to protect your peace, but at the same time, you also got to recognize an issue that started with you showing favoritism towards one person that has spiraled out of control. You have a responsibility to these women, to the audience, to the production company, and to everyone else to have at least sat down and had a conversation because it was supposed to be had after episode 1 in this season. Okay, that is my biggest gripe with this situation. And it's not that I dislike Shaunie or anything like that. I think she's a boss, beautiful woman. I'm sure she's a great mom. But I also feel like the way that she handled that situation last night and leaving and then promptly leaving, and which tells me that she had already had plans to leave that situation early and to bounce. It's like, if you're not going to even be a team player, get off the team. Okay, manage the team from the sidelines, manage the team from the bench. But at the end of the day, if you're not going to play ball, then get off the court. Like, that's not cool to me. That's not how we show leadership. And you know, I just feel like, again, thank you for the super chat, Virgin Love 8. DJ, you're absolutely right, but she seemed not to care anymore. Yeah, and if you checked out, then don't come back. Don't keep coming around. You know, just don't. If you're not going to be an active participant in the situation, try to at least. And again, you don't have to like or agree with what OG said, but you can have a discussion with her about how to make it better and to at least take some measure to figure it out. And then the things work from the top down, right? So Shaunie creates a situation. OG, what would you like to have happen in this situation? OG telling Shaunie that she just wants to be treated equally and make everybody be themselves around her is way different than communicating with Malaysia about it. And the reason why I say that is because Shaunie is an EP, you know, and Shaunie is again at the top of this chain of in the friendship circle. Then from that point forward, she communicates that to everybody in the group, and now they just start off on a whole different note. It becomes a different situation. That's just how I see it. She sounded shaky when her voice was cracking. I thought she was about to cry when she said it. Evelyn over there crying because, you know, in my mind, I'm like, is she quitting the show? Because I'm like, I mean, if you ain't gonna really be an active participant, maybe you should just quit the show. Because otherwise, what are you here for? It's almost kind of useless. I enjoy seeing her with the family, and I enjoy the FaceTimes with Shaq. But at the end of the day, if you're not gonna be mixing it up with the ladies and having these real conversations, then I mean, you can go too. Love you, but Basketball Wives LA was fine before. Okay. Anyway, you know, Kristen and Jackie have a conversation. Kristen feels like it's a waste of time for anybody to go back and talk to OG, and I could have swore OG said that the case was closed and the slate was clean. Okay, so why are we still talking about this issue? I'll never know. Anyway, Jackie goes back to the house. You know, OG's like, I don't know what you want me to do. And Jackie says, are you willing to admit that maybe something may not be colorism? And OG's like, no, I'm not. Here's this. And again, I said it earlier. This is what I don't like. This is what I don't like. Jackie, what you're doing right now is veering into gaslighting territory. Now, y'all know I love me some Jackie. I love me some Jackie. Jackie is one of my favorites on this show. And in certain instances, I can understand why Jackie is wanting her to Jackie's pushing for things to get better, because Jackie wants the show to continue, because Jackie is one of the centerpieces on this show. I get that. Sorry. Thank you for the super chat, Keza Love. The show is not the place to have these conversations. Some of these ladies don't have the mental fortitude to tackle these issues. Cancel the show. I agree with you. I feel like it's such a bigger issue. It's such a layered, complex, conversation that is not going to be cured. But I just feel like they needed a mediator to really handle this conversation. Diamond Diva says, why is Jen there? She's not open to work on issues either. Yeah, Jen is a whole different ball game. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me get back to it. Jackie wants OG to let down her walls, and she wants OG to meet them halfway. And prior to listening to the audio, I had said the same thing. I was personally, thank you for the super chat. I was like, OG needs to meet these ladies halfway. But what I think we didn't realize is that OG was already halfway. And here's why I say that. And I feel like when OG came back to this house, I don't think it was to settle anything with the colorism issue. I think it was to come back and move forward. And for some people, moving forward truly means I've dealt with what's happened, and I don't want to go back there, because it is very clear that she has experienced a lot of trauma with regards to this, as have a lot of us. And I'm sure she brings some of that with her, because we all bring a piece of our experience with us. But I feel like maybe meeting her halfway didn't mean going backwards. Maybe it just meant meeting her in this day and moving forward. Maybe that's what it meant. And maybe nobody got that. Famika Capricorn says, very much a coward. Shaunie had a duty to fulfill her leadership role. She failed. Instead, she let her ego lead her. Jackie is trying to trap OG up. I've seen this in the workplace. Yeah, that was probably one of the things that I didn't like that Jackie did. And I understand Jackie wanted the issue to be resolved. Jackie wanted to get back to having fun. Jackie wanted it to be, light and lighthearted and free again. And maybe it could have been. Maybe it could have been, had the conversation not kept coming up. So, as I'm looking at this, I'm not looking at it from as much of a right and wrong perspective, as much as I am, what am I seeing here? How do we make it better? And maybe the approach that was being taken wasn't the best way. Maybe it wasn't, right? And maybe, again, Shaunie should have had a conversation sooner. But running away definitely wasn't the way to go. And I also feel like Jackie trying to force her to say that what she experienced wasn't colorism was not the way to go either. Because whatever she experienced is her experience. And I also felt like when she said everybody is guilty of colorism, she meant the larger issue. That's my interpretation of it based on the audio. Again, watching the episode last night, I had one opinion. Listening to the audio, I had a completely different opinion. Completely different opinion. It's almost as if they took the most heightened parts of OG's responses and they added those into the conversation. But they didn't give you context for the buildup of that conversation. And that's not to say that Malaysia and Kristen did anything completely crazy or wrong. It's just that I felt like they wouldn't let the issue go. And I felt in my spirit, you could hear OG asking, let's move forward. Let's clear the slate. And it hit me. Because, I listened to the audio and then I went to the gym. And I said to myself, maybe she never really needed to have these discussions. It was them that needed to have the discussions. But that was for them, not her. Somewhat, And I don't think that they got that she wasn't in that space no more of trying to deal with that. And you hear her say to Jackie, for those who are asking, where's the audio? It's on her page. It's 60 minutes in length for anybody who may have just, gotten on the live. I understand that. You hear her say to Jackie several times, maybe my approach should be different. Now, with regards to the issue between Nia and Naria and OG, I don't know what was going on there, but my spidey sense tells me that could have been a little bit of production. What am I not making sense to you about? Be specific. I see several people who seem to get what I'm saying. Okay, so here's this is something I want to say too. You can't move on after these accusations. They need to be addressed, especially if they feel like they're being falsely accused. So, this is basically my take on that part of the conversation. I firmly believe that in the moment that a couple of things, really. I think that in the moment that OG said that she believes that that there is colorism within the group, I think that there is a difference between me pointing out that me calling a specific person colorist. If I'm a part of a group of friends and a new person comes in and they say that there's a colorism issue here, if I don't feel like I did anything wrong, I'm not going to accept that label. That's just that on that. And what people have to realize is this: the moment and this is probably why she also avoided that as well, saying or labeling any one person as a colorist, is because when you do that, because that word is such a strong stamp, that those are words that people can sue over. So you have to be, this is why she's in a lawsuit with Evelyn. Because basically the implication there was that she was calling her, allegedly, a racist. So OG also has to be careful with her wordplay, but also too, if I felt like I ain't done nothing wrong, I'm not being the hit dog that's hollering. Okay? Because the saying goes, a hit dog will holler. If you feel like you're not the hit dog, you ain't gonna holler. You're gonna keep it moving. That's how I feel about it. And again, if the accusation is there is colorism within the group, again, the leader of the group has the obligation to say, hold on, let's have a conversation. What leader runs from that conversation? It ain't up to Kristen or to OG or to Malaysia to do that. That's really, that goes to the top. And yes, I understand. That is very true. It is really up the person who has experienced it. Okay, they need to be very specific about what it is. But according to OG, if you read her messages, she says that she's talked to production. She's went to the powers that be at the network. She's had these conversations, but nothing changed. Not with production. And this is the other reason why we say it's up to like Shawnee. If Shawnee had stepped in to be a part of the solution, then things could have changed on a surface level with the rest of the cast, because these girls fall in line behind Shawnee. Y'all know that. You saw that as soon as Evelyn leaves, as soon as Shawnee leaves, Evelyn leaving too. As soon as Evelyn leaves, Malaysia and Kristen, they ain't got no reason to stay either. If it didn't come from the top down, Kristen, Evelyn, and Malaysia would have all stayed and kept the thing going. But because they assumed that when Shawnee left that it was a wrap, they following the leader to a certain degree. Somebody said I would have preferred Wags coming back. But the other thing about this is, and I've tried to handle this I've tried to handle this as delicately as possible, because I know that this issue is real, and I know that there are so many different layers to it. And I feel like I tried to do this in a responsible way, because, I just feel like that's what I'm supposed to do. And I'm trying to give you guys what I see based on the news and based on the episode and based on, again, my third eye and what I feel like is going on. I saw a really good comment. We need to normalize holding our friends and family accountable of nonsense. Honestly, favoritism is childish in elementary school. And, holding people accountable doesn't mean that we condemn them to the fire pits of HE double hockey sticks. It doesn't mean that. It means that, hey, we let our friends know, hey, Evelyn, when you said or you did this, that wasn't right. It's not cool to call Cece that name, even though apparently, and they talked about this in the audio too, that Evelyn, basically apologized to Cece right after that moment. And she also she wrote a written statement apologizing as well. But also too, I think it would have been nice for us to see Shawnee have that conversation with her friend to acknowledge, hey, girl, I got your back always. I do. I really got your back always. But what you did then wasn't right. And you need to take some steps to correct that and make sure that that thing never happens again. You know what I'm saying? You still my home girl. I still got your back, but you was dead wrong in that situation. And so, we gotta have that conversation too. That's what real friends do. I mean, I think if you grown, but that's just me. Now, one of the reasons why I feel like they wanted to wait to have these conversations with the ladies is because a lot of times with reality television, they will want you to save a conversation for television. However, I feel like because of this issue was so big and it was so magnified and it affected the audience as well as the ladies, I felt as though there still could have been some behind the scenes conversations, some behind the scenes. Hey, girl, let me pick up the phone and call you. What did you experience? Tell me, how can we make this better? That didn't have to be filmed as well. And it's just, again, it ain't about, she's right and I'm wrong or this, that, and the third. It's about understanding. And I think that could have been solved so much earlier. And that's how I feel. And again, I don't always feel like OG's right in every situation. I don't. I feel like sometimes she does team too much in certain instances. But, I feel like that's the nature of reality shows in general. Everybody's right and everybody's wrong. And everybody will have their moment to be wrong. And I'm not afraid to say that either. Mel J says, do you think the group can genuinely find a resolve? I think that what they have to realize is that now Resolve may look a little differently for everyone. And I think that, to be quite honest with you, if I were OG, I would not go back to that show. Mostly because of the distrust that I believe exists between her and production. I don't think that she trusts production. I don't think that she trusts the ladies. And I feel in my spirit like some people, that type of reality show isn't for everybody. And I think that there are some people who work on these shows who are willing to play ball with production. And I think there's nothing wrong with that if they want to, make a good show. But I think that some people will just always be too real for reality TV in its current form. And I believe that OG is one of those people. I can name quite a few people who I feel like this same situation, not same, but a similar situation has happened where maybe production has promised something or allegedly promised something is going to be different. And they go back the next season and it's no different at all. And so then that results in the person having to record conversations, to record, and to save text messages to prove that they're not exactly how they're being portrayed. They may not be perfect, but they may not be portrayed as the way that they're getting it, So, for me, if I were her, in my mind, I think that piece is more important than that paper that's being collected from this gig. And I would just move on because you can find other ways to get a bag. That's just me. This is the same reason that it's a little bit different, but it's the same reason why I also said that I felt like Monique should leave Potomac. I just feel like your peace of mind is worth more than a show, because clearly nothing's going to change, right? If she has to go so far as to record scenes, then it's probably at a point where I can't trust y'all. And I don't think that a person's sanity or mental peace is worth it. But that's for me. That's how I feel. And that's me on a personal level. David says, I think discussing colorism in the space of basketball wives is becoming problematic and irresponsible. The subject is way too complex. I somewhat agree with you. And I guess I feel like one of the best things that I think came out of this is that it at least got us talking about this issue, and it's uncovering some things, and it's in a way forcing people to look at ourselves and our actions and things that we say to other people and really look at, is what I'm saying the best thing for me to be saying about, somebody else in general? And so sometimes we need these types of situations to come along to wake us up and to realize that we can also do better as well. And that's how I try to look at it in this situation. And I know a lot of people are up in arms right now, but I think given some time to reflect about it, I feel honestly that a lot of people, as a result of these conversations, will have an awakening about how we treat other people and the language that we use and how we, respect one another. So I think that if we look at the positive in the situation, which I'm choosing to do, because I can only tell you that for me, I've learned so much about, the issue. I've learned about featureism. I've learned so much. And even as I speak now, I'm learning to be a lot more cognizant of the words that I use, even if it doesn't regard, race or color. It just could be in general. I'm learning to be a little bit more, responsible, I would say, in how I communicate. Sadly, if it were white women who were gaslighting OG, people who don't like her would see the situation for what it is. Yeah. Yeah. we are talking about hundreds of years of this topic that has affected the community both socially and economically. Absolutely. But it is only if we begin having these unpleasant conversations that we begin to chip away at what has been done, right? So we got to start somewhere, and every small step counts to me. But that's just me. And I just feel like, why not use this as a teachable moment? Even if the women on the show are not going to use it as a teachable moment, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to learn from it. And that doesn't mean that you can't learn from it. But I thank you for the super chat, and I thank you for the dialogue, my brother. Yeah, and see, and this is an example of what I'm saying. Like Victoria says, yes, I very much enjoy the education of colorism as a 59-year-old, not knowing what it meant. And I think that that's how we need to take away. That's what the takeaway from this situation can be. I know it can be exhausting a little bit because it's in the context of a reality show that we typically look at, because the ladies are fighting and throwing shade. But why not take what we can get out of it in some other way and learn from it? That's how I feel. Jeremy says, until all parties are willing to acknowledge their part in the problem, it's always going to be finger pointing of you're wrong, I'm right. That could be true as well. Lorraine, we talked about this yesterday. Richie, that comment you made about calling people ugly has been something I felt for a long time. I stay away from that word. Hold on. Thank you for that. Yes, I said that earlier. There have been things that OG has said as well, and I say that some things that she pointed out I felt like weren't necessarily colorism and were petty things that we say to each other that tear each other down. And I think that there was a little bit of conflating issues between colorism and also just the way we speak to each other as people of color. I feel like she pointed out two separate issues, but I don't think she did the best job of clarifying where the line was drawn with those issues. But she called out those issues. And I think that they're both great points of reflection. Sharon Gilchrist says, I noticed you brushed off the comment about calling people ugly. I really didn't. We had a very long discussion about this yesterday on the live. We talked about the idea that I don't like the word ugly when it's being used in reference to how someone looks, and it's not something that I like to use. And I also asked, as an audience, that maybe we can consider not even using that term to describe people in the way that they look. So I didn't brush it off. I just happened to see another comment that I wanted to highlight as well. I agree. This is truly a teachable moment, something we can all learn from in order to talk to and treat each other better. Yeah, I mean, I think why not take something positive away from all of this craziness and the fact that it's only one more episode? Yes, everyone throws shade. Absolutely. Yes, come on, doctor. We gonna have to speak that doctorate into existence, y'all. Yes, I completely agree. I would say that OG is more stubborn. Yeah. All right, y'all. We had a long review today for this particular show. Oh, I saw another comment. I wanted to highlight. Someone asked an interesting question I wanted to bring up. Anyway, we had a pretty long discussion about this. Y'all comments are y'all comments are wild, and I love y'all for it. Listen, I need to go eat some lunch. We went all the way in. Make sure you guys check out OG's Instagram page. Listen to that audio. Check out those text messages that she released as well. Get into the audio if you haven't heard it, because I think that your perspective about the conversation may be different. And it's okay. Listen, we also can normalize liking two people who don't like each other. Okay, so we can normalize that without demonizing the other. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to kind of make that clear as well. And I think sometimes we also have to take a step back from, just because somebody might be our favorite, and also kind of just look at the situation like, what am I really seeing here? So that's all I encourage y'all to do. But otherwise, y'all, listen, your boy going to eat, okay? And we got into the thing today. And I appreciate all of y'all for sticking around and having this dialogue. And again, I always say this, listen, until we confront the things that plague us as a country, as people of color, you know what I'm saying? As Black people, as men, as women, until we confront these things and start having the tough conversations, these things will continue to plague us. But it is once we confront these things and begin to have open and discussions and dialogue that is non-judgmental, that's where we can start to get to a place of healing and understanding and moving forward. Now, with that being said, I want to tell y'all I love y'all. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell button. And y'all know, now that I got this FiOS, I'll be back tomorrow too. And I'm going to catch you guys in the next video. I love y'all.